Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to my Batman series, where I'll be covering every Batman movie that I have yet to talk about in honor of The Batman coming out March 1st. And considering the fact that initial screenings to this movie in IMAX have sold out, yeah, this movie's going to break 2022. But I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Now it's time to enter the Schumacher Batman movies, and I want to get out ahead of this by saying that I'm not going to spend my time talking about these movies bashing Joel Schumacher, or at least I'm going to try my hardest not to, because I have a lot of respect for him as a filmmaker. People like to make fun of Joel Schumacher just for the weird things that he had in his movies, but I'm not one of them. I dislike some of his movies, specifically his second Batman movie, but I will talk about that at a later date. But I have nothing but respect for him as a filmmaker. He came along during a time when making these big, bold, strokes like this was the norm. He came in the same class as guys like Michael Bay and the Scott brothers of Tony and Ridley. He was employed for years as a music video director for Madonna and Seal, among others. He directed a really underrated movie called Falling Down. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's so good. Not to mention, we wouldn't have actors like Julia Roberts or Kiefer Sutherland without this director. Seriously, Joel Schumacher is better than you remember. He just made a couple of bad movies, aka any director in Hollywood. So I'm saying this just to say that I'm not going to be bashing Schumacher, or I'm going to be trying not to take personal shots at him. Now, especially because he is no longer with us, may he rest in peace. With that out of the way, let's talk about Batman Forever. This was directed by the aforementioned Joel Schumacher. It was released in 1995, and it starred a debuting Val Kilmer under the cape and cowl as Batman. This would be his only Batman movie, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. As well as Chris O'Donnell, Jim Carrey, and Tommy Lee Jones, among others. Batman is back, but this time he has encountered a new foe. Well, two to be specific. First up is the Riddler, Edward Nygma, played by Jim Carrey, who is a bit of a wacky fellow, but more methodical than he might realize. And Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones. And the two have a scheme, and they love to chew the scenery, that's all I will say. While all of this is going down, Batman has a new love interest in the form of Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, and the taking on of Robin, played by Chris O'Donnell. As I touched on in my Batman Returns review, Tim Burton went a little too hard, and so was basically booted out of the director's chair, and the creative reins were handed to Joel Schumacher, who I just mentioned. And while this movie made more money than Batman Returns, critically, this was not as well received. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Batman Forever. I noticed the problems, and I definitely noticed some things that I don't like. However, I feel like there is a much better movie hidden underneath the mandates of we need to make this more family-friendly, or about as family-friendly as we can get something like this. And especially considering that McDonald's was kind of watching every move that they did, I'm surprised that we got at least a somewhat competent product like this. Firstly, I want to talk about Val Kilmer, because I feel like creative really had nothing for him to do. Because there are scenes where you definitely feel the passion that Val Kilmer had. But for a lot of times, it just kind of feels lost. My favorite scene with Val Kilmer as Batman is the one where he gives the monologue of now I'm both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Not because I have to be, but because I choose to be. It's a great scene. Also, people give a lot of crap to Chris O'Donnell for his performance as Robin, and there's a lot of crap towards Robin in general, which is weird, but I guess I'm not as in tune with the comic space as I realized. But I liked Chris O'Donnell's performance here. There's definitely some cringy stuff, like when in the final battle, there's a definite callback to the Adam West Batman, where where Robin goes, "Holy rusted metal, Batman!" And Batman's like, "Huh?" And then Robin's like, "Well, look, the metal's rusted, and it's holy." And yeah, that made me cringe. It really did. However, I actually liked Chris O'Donnell. I think he gives a serviceable enough performance here. And in Batman and Robin, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. And now let's talk about Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. Oh boy. Now, I should note that in 1993, outside of maybe Bret Hart and Steven Spielberg, no one had a better 1993 than Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was in Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, and The Mask in the same year. Jim Carrey should have just retired after that. He clearly peaked. So casting him as the Riddler makes sense on paper. However, kinda like what I pointed to in my Batman Returns review, I like the Riddler that they cast for Batman the Animated Series. He had his riddles, yes, but he was methodical. You could take this Riddler seriously. Jim Carrey's the Riddler, you can't. Like, Jim Carrey just basically chews the scenery, spits it out, and then chews it again. He takes it way over the top. And there are some funny moments, like when Edward Nygma takes a pot of coffee and hits it over his boss's head and says, "Caffeine will kill ya!" Like, that scene is funny to me. But the rest of the time, from his just demeanor to his outfits, it's distracting, pretty much. And it really doesn't help the fact that Tommy Lee Jones, I feel like his directive was, you see what Jim Carrey's doing? Do that. When Tommy Lee Jones is not that. If you need someone to be the stern but blasé but likable, like, kind of anti-hero, you call Tommy Lee Jones. He does not do over the top very well, and it is incredibly noticeable. Honestly, the best Two-Face we have gotten and will ever get is Aaron Eckhart. That dude understood the assignment perfectly. And like I said, I think my general summation of this movie is that there is a better Batman movie here somewhere. It was just mandated that this needed to be this instead of this. And if we've seen anything with modern superhero movies, is that it feels like it needs to check off a series of guidelines rather than be something unique. I feel like Joel Schumacher wanted to make something unique. However, it almost feels like his vision was smothered a little bit. Some people have said that Batman Forever is just straight up bad, and I disagree. It is a mediocre movie, but with some moments of brilliance. That's all I will say. But Batman Forever is a masterpiece compared to Joel Schumacher's second and final Batman movie, Batman and Robin, which I will be covering next in this series. However, for this I could not travel alone, and so for that, I'm going to be having my Life in the Movies podcast partner, Jacob Martin, join me to suffer through this together. Thank God for that. But if you liked this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.